The global economic recovery does remain fragile. In Europe, several countries are struggling to maintain control of their finances with implications well beyond their own borders. In the United States, our main export market, the unemployment rate remains a full 1.5 points above ours. Around the world, the growth we saw earlier this year has slowed. And beyond the economic risk, there is, I regret to say, a political risk. That is the risk of an unnecessary election, an election that would jeopardize our economic recovery just as we enter the home stretch. Now, Canadians don't want an election. Our government isn't seeking one. But the opposition coalition, the Michael Ignatieff NDP-Bloc Québécois coalition, has been consistent in one thing, if only one thing. From the beginning of the global economic crisis, they have put their own interests above Canadians. To appreciate what's at stake, let's take a moment and look at our recent history. We're proud of our record. Let us remember that just 5 short years ago, Canada was led by a weak, dithering, and directionless government. The evidence, support for Quebec's sovereignty was on the rise. Our ability to defend Canada's sovereignty was on the decline. Waste, mismanagement, and corruption were rampant on the inside. And regular Canadians, the people who work hard, who pay their taxes, play by the rules, were left on the outside. Now, today our government is strong, our federation is united, Canada is standing up for its sovereignty and interests on the world stage. And Canadians have received real benefits that deliver real support for the real world in which they live. Cutting the GST, introducing the $1,200 per year child care benefit, delivering the tax-free savings account. We did all this and more while protecting health care and pensions. But most important, we met the challenge of the global economic crisis head-on with our world-leading economic action plan. First of all, we took preventative action. We paid down debt when times were good, preparing for a rainy day. We strengthened our already strong banking system. We injected tax cut stimulus into the economy before the crisis. And we rejected Michael Ignatieff's proposal for a job-killing carbon tax. Then, once the crisis hit, we didn't panic. Instead, we went to work. This was a recession that came from outside of our country. We listened to Canadians in one of the largest pre-budget consultations in history. We fast-tracked our budget, the earliest budget in Canadian history. We delivered further tax cuts. We enhanced EI benefits for those hit hardest by the global recession. And we made job-creating investments in roads, bridges, buildings, and other infrastructure that will leave a legacy for future generations. Ladies and gentlemen, an unnecessary election would put all of that at risk. Not just Canada's amazing accomplishments in recent years, not just our hard-won world-leading status, but also our long-term growth and prosperity, the ability to invest in the priorities of Canadians, the quality of life of our children and grandchildren. Now, throughout the recession, the Ignatieff NDP-Bloc Québécois coalition has demanded that we raise taxes, demanded we take more money from the pockets of hardworking Canadians. Their leader has vowed to reverse tax cuts for job-creating businesses. He refuses to rule out raising the GST back up to 7%. He refuses to rule out a carbon tax, an idea he came up with, a job-killing tax on everything, rejected by Canadians in the last election. He even supports a new tax on iPods. Under an Ignatieff NDP-Bloc Québécois government, nothing would be safe. No part of our economy would be spared. No taxpayer would avoid the hit. And what's the supposed benefit? The coalition promises massive new permanent entitlement programs. Programs we can't afford. Programs that would make more room for government and less room for growth. We can't afford such risky economic management. The costs are too high, and it's not just in the coalition's across-the-board tax hikes. It's not only big government reaching into your pocket for more of your hard-earned money. The real cost of these reckless promises is in the lives of Canadians, our families, businesses, and communities. Experts estimate that the Michael Ignatieff NDP-Bloc Québécois tax hikes would kill almost 400,000 jobs. Coincidentally, that is virtually the number of jobs lost, but which we've since regained during the recession. More importantly, behind those 400,000 jobs are real Canadians, real families, real hardship. They deserve better than a Liberal leader who would risk their jobs and their livelihoods. That's a night and day difference from our Conservative government under Stephen Harper. The record shows we take a principled, practical, prudent approach to leadership. The coalition led by Mr. Ignatieff has its own agenda: power, power, power. While their leader is untested and unready, their ideas are not. They have been tested, and they've failed. The evidence: bigger and bigger government, endless red tape, higher and higher taxes. And any coalition that would give the NDP access to taxpayers' wallets should strike fear in regular Canadians. What's more, any coalition that would give a veto on national policy to a party dedicated to the breakup of our country is unacceptable. Canadians are tired of political instability. They are tired of elections every 2 years, and they know we need a stable government to ensure our economic recovery and long-term growth. Of course, they deny they will officially join forces, but they did it before. They'll do it again, and that is the choice we will face. That is the risk we must avoid. The consequences are just too great. You know, in the global recession that we've lived through these past 2-3 years, the ship of state has had a difficult voyage, but we can see the harbor lights. And that's just when a would-be captain and his raging crew are trying to storm the bridge. If they seize the helm, ladies and gentlemen, they'll have us on the rocks. And that's not how this voyage should end. The Ignatieff NDP-Bloc Québécois tax hikes would not only jeopardize our recovery from the global recession, the coalition's policies would also squander this incredible Canadian advantage that we have internationally now and limit our long-term prospects. They would set us on the same downward spiral other countries are now trying desperately to escape. So on that happy note, of course we know. Now we'll talk about Canada's cheerful future. We know how the coalition will try to frame our government, because we won't make promises we can't keep. They will say that we are harsh, that we are mean, that we won't spend beyond our means. By not spending beyond our means, not raising taxes on hard-working Canadians, that's, I can assure you, not about being harsh. It's about keeping us safe. It's about keeping Canadians and Canadian families secure. It's about ensuring Canada and Canadians can provide for their families, that their government can provide the priority services they need and expect, that their children and grandchildren can look forward to a great future in the best country in the world, that we can be ready to meet a crisis and come out of it even stronger as we have. Families get this. Small business owners get this, Canadians get this, and that's why they get what we are doing as government. That's why they can trust us. That's why they know Stephen Harper's leadership is the kind of stable, responsible leadership our country needs. Now, the opposition coalition will say we should be warm and fuzzy. And knowing what's at stake for our economic recovery and our long-term prosperity, I'm willing to enter the fray. As for the need to be warm and fuzzy, I think our fellow citizens expect more than sentiment from the federal government. Canadians don't separate their heads from their hearts. We need the prudence of the former to achieve the aspirations of the latter. Our history shows we're willing to work hard as Canadians, to work together, to make tough but balanced choices when necessary for the sake of achieving our shared goals together. A country as great as Canada couldn't have been built any other way, and our Conservative government under Prime Minister Stephen Harper wouldn't do it any other way.